I'll call the meeting of the Plan Commission to order. We'll begin this evening by considering approval of the Planning Commission meeting minutes of February 13, 2017.
So moved.
Motion by Jensen,
Second.
second by Truel. Are there any comments or amendments to those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Council Representative Report from Alderperson Truel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Really, two of the items moved forward to council from plan. We did take up the business incubator that we had looked at previously, and that was approved in terms of dividing that property out on Business Park. And the Casey's Market went to council for first reading, and it's actually coming back next week, or excuse me, tomorrow night. Lose track of days here, for final vote. I don't think there was anything else that went for council.
Pretty much covered it, Rodney. That's it. All right, thank you. Status of current developments, Planning Director Shield.
Maybe nothing particular to highlight within the staff report. I can report that there is an open house for the comprehensive plan that is taking place at 7 o'clock tonight at the EMS facility. For those of you that don't know, the council members in entirety requested another open house be conducted within 2 weeks of the last council meeting. The first available date actually was tonight, in order to have it hit the paper last Thursday and have ample time for the publication to be in the paper. Monday night was the only night that was able to have that meeting prior to Tuesday. In addition, the public hearing or the open house is being recorded, so it is open and available online and through WSTO. So that will be immediately following this meeting.
Yes, thank you. Thanks. Agenda item 5, a request by Tom Matson for extraterritorial jurisdictional approval of a certified survey map to reconfigure the parcels at and adjacent to 3213 County Highway A, Town of Rutland. Planning Director Shield.
This request is for an adjustment of lot lines, in essence, to create one lot slightly larger than an existing lot and to downsize the adjacent parcel. It's within the city's ETJ, but outside of our long-range urban planning boundaries.
Thank you. Comments or questions from commissioners?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Truel, second by Hannah. Commissioner Hannah. Oh, okay. Just second. You seconded. Any comments? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. A request by Jason Perry for extraterritorial jurisdictional approval of a certified survey map to separate the existing residence from farmland at 1928 Williams Drive, Town of Pleasant Springs.
The resolution in your packet outlines this request. You'll note that this is also within the city's ETJ area, but it is also beyond our long-term growth planning area. If there's any questions, we certainly would answer them. The resolution outlines the request.
Thank you. Comments or discussion?
Move for approval.
Commissioner Hannah. Motion by Hannah. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Truel. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. A request by Tony Hill for a certified survey map approval to combine the parcels at 753 and 761 Nottingham Road.
This CSM is actually located within the city limits, and it actually is on the corner, or near the corner of Buckingham Road and Nottingham Road. These two lots, lots 134 and 135, are intended to be combined into one larger parcel with the applicant's intent to build a house on the combined parcel.
Thank you. Comments or questions? Commissioner Engelberger.
Thank you, Hunter. Just a question for Rodney. Is this a normal thing that we've done in the past?
It certainly has been.
You got some examples of that? Or?
Yeah, Kingsland Road, the northern end of Kingsland Road, a larger home was placed on two lots that were purchased and combined. That one comes to mind easily. So
it's just for quite a larger house than normal in the area, or?
yeah. Just for a little background, Tony Hill was actually one of the developers of this particular plat, His intent is to move into the city and is hoping to build a home that would be larger than what would be accomplished on one single parcel.
Okay. Do you see any problems with it?
I do not.
Other
Okay.
comments or questions?
Move approval?
Motion by Truul, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jensen. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. A request by Larry and Sandy Stenner. I hope I'm saying that right, Larry and Sandy. If not, I apologize. Stenner for approval of a preliminary and final condominium plat to split a duplex at 1908 and 1910 Hilldale Lane.
This particular request comes before you. You're familiar with what we've termed zero lot line structures. This one wouldn't meet the opportunity to do that because it doesn't have separate sewer and water laterals. The intent is to create the condominium plat to allow for those common elements, water and sewer laterals, to be held as part of common elements that would be maintained and agreed through that ownership structure.
Thank you. So we'll start this out with the public hearing. So I'll close the meeting and open a public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to speak at the public hearing regarding agenda item 8? All right. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and reopen for the regular course of business. Looking to commissioners for a recommendation to council or discussion regarding this item.
Move to approve.
So motion by Jensen. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Truul. All those in favor, aye? Oh, sorry,
Aye.
I'll back up a little bit.
I
Commissioner
have a little
Engelberger
time
had a
for
question.
discussion.
Yep.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a question on this. I guess, what's the alternative, Rodney?
The alternative is to not allow a separate ownership of each half of the structure. The zero lot line regulations that outline that through a different process require separate sewer and water laterals to each side of the unit.
So is there an alternative for a separate lateral?
They could install,
Why isn't that an option?
well, it is an option. In order for them to accomplish it, they could put in separate sewer and water laterals, digging up the improved area. Their request is before us to try to accomplish separate ownership of each half of the structure while keeping the sewer and water lateral elements in a common ownership.
Which, in my opinion, would be an exception to what we currently have, and that's why we're trying to change it to this. Is that correct?
I don't know that I'd consider it an exception. I think it accomplishes what the intent of the zero lot line regulations are. They were trying to make sure ownership of the sewer and water laterals were not held by somebody that wasn't able to have access to those areas. By having them be common elements, they're both joint owners of that infrastructure in this case.
Have we done this in other cases?
I can't think of one right off the top of my head.
Well, that's why I think it's could be a precedent setter. So I guess I'd like to hear some more discussion on it.
Okay. Commissioner Maloney.
Just a question on the sheet that's provided from Stoughton Utilities. Is that indicating for the water that there's a shutoff for each side on this exhibit?
Just 1 second.
I'm sorry, I can't speak to it.
Michael, can you find that sheet quickly?
I believe it did show separate water, but I think the sewer was the issue.
Well, I understand that, but, you see my point?
Appears that there's a symbol for curb stops for
Yeah.
each unit, which I guess would be a concern if there wasn't, but
Right.
it would appear that they are, but not in a location that
Shows up here.
would allow a zero lot line to go through that location.
So they do have separate,
Got separate water.
the ability to turn off the water to each unit separately. The sanitary lateral would be maintained in common.
Okay. Sure, Commissioner Engelberger.
Thank you. I guess I I do have a little bit of a problem with this, and the problem I have is, you know, we do this time after time regarding commercial situations. And it's basically, the reason we do it is because the developer or owner comes to us and wants to save some money, and then we break our own ordinances or deviate from the norm, and that's kind of the problem I have with this. So, it's my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you. Other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll go back. We do have a motion by Jensen and a second by Commissioner Truill to approve, or to recommend council approve. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
That motion carries. 1 no. Next, we have a request by Stoughton Utilities for a certified survey map approval to split the property at 3201 Macomb Road. Planning Director Shield, would you like to start?
As many of the commissioners likely know, the city of Stoughton Utilities had purchased this larger parcel a number of years ago, and they are now in the process of proceeding to work to construct and implement their substation on what's shown on this area's Lot 1, and therefore they've created a CSM to parcel off that segment of the larger piece of land to do so.
Thank you. Looking to our commissioners for discussion. The Utilities Director Cardez is here tonight if you have questions on the next few items as well. Commissioner Hanna.
I'll move for approval. I don't see any issue with this.
Second.
So motion by Hanna, second by Truill. Comments or questions?
Just a general one. Do we
Mr.
have a plan of attack for the rest of the property?
There isn't any definitive plans for it. It's in our comprehensive plan that allows for another use, but it hasn't been platted out or laid out at this point for.
Not yet. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That motion carries. A request by Stoughton Utilities to rezone a portion of that property at 3201 Macomb Road from RH Rural Holding to I Industrial. And we'll start with explanation by Planning Director Shield.
The institutional zoning is a zoning that would allow for the substation use to be present on the site, and therefore is being recommended to be rezoned to institutional use. Substations also are permitted outright in the planned business district zoning. Institutional is generally what the property owned by the city of Stoughton has been zoned.
Thank you. And then we'll start with the public hearing. So I'll close the regular meeting and open a public hearing. And this is, I do have one person wishing to speak. Dean Sutter. If you'd like to announce your name and address, please.
Sure. Sutter's pretty close, but it's
I'm
actually
sorry.
Sutton, that's fine.
Sutton,
It's my
yeah.
handwriting, not your reading of the form. So, good evening, Commission members. My name's Dean Sutton, and I live on family property that's owned by Al and Jan Wiley. They are actually out of state right now and were unable to attend the hearing tonight, but they've authorized me to speak on their behalf. To orient the Commission, we're talking about the construction of a substation. The property that I live on is approximately 100 acres, and it's to the west of this property where the substation will be constructed. And if you're looking at Walmart, it's essentially across the road, a little bit east of the pond. And myself and Bruce Syme, who's a farmer who lives further west, had received a letter from ATC, the power line entity, just requesting permission to access the land to do a certain amount of soil samples and other testing. We had both refused that. They had offered us a nominal amount in price to do that. We respectfully decline their offer. And I just want to, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight, just to present our position on the construction of the substation and the impact it's going to have to the land in the area. So we know ATC is looking for power line access. The lines may not be an issue before you right now with respect to zoning, but what we don't want to have happen here is the construction of the substation and the power line work and all the other things that are happening with Kettle Park West to adversely affect the property values of where I live and my neighbors. There's more than just my wife here tonight. We don't think it's a good idea. First of all, it's not safe, number one. I know I spoke before this commission maybe a year ago. The time goes quickly, maybe more than a year. But with respect to EMFs, they are not safe to people. They're not safe to cattle. I know this isn't a situation where it's especially close to any farm, but in generally, it's just not something you want close to people. Of course, it devalues the property. You know, historically, the whole western expansion has not really helped the value of our property, and I can argue that it hasn't really helped long-term goals of the city of Stoughton. But that's not something we can unwind at this point. You know, I'd really ask each one of you sit on the commission whether you'd want the power lines or you'd want the substation next to your property. I think the answer is probably a unanimous no. I don't think there's too many of you who'd want to take one for the city and have that substation so close to where you live. It's not good for your family. It's just not good. You know, there's lots of discontent with this approach. With the advisory referendum, we know that the people of Stoughton aren't especially happy with some of the development that's taking place north of 138. And, you know, if we have to do something with the power lines, if we have to do something with the substation, at least with the power lines, try to keep them on the roadway. Don't dissect people's property with the power lines. It's not a good idea. ATC with their Rockdale Middleton project from a few years ago, they understood that and put the power lines on the belt line. That's what we want here. We don't want the power lines intersecting people's property. And if we have to build the substation, ideally, I know this, the train may have already left the station on this, but if you have to do it, try to put it north of 138 with the commercial development, and don't put it in a location that's the closest possible location to where we reside. And when I look at the tract of land that Stoughton purchased, that's what's happening here. They want to tuck it in looking at directionally, the southwest corner of that property. That's not good for us as property owners. So I would just encourage everyone to carefully think about this. Think about the impact it has on people who live in the area. Think about it, how it really kind of serves as a welcome mat for people coming in from the west to Stoughton on 138. In my opinion, it's not a good idea. I've been involved, at least in some of these discussions, with the Planning Commission and other entities within a Stoughton governance for a while. Let's try to keep an open line of communication. Let me know when these meetings are. If I can get on an email list, that'd be great. I had found out about this in kind of through an offhand related way tonight. I'm glad I'm here, and thanks for listening.
There was a direct mailing.
Did you get the direct mailing that went out?
Property owners were direct mailings went to the property owners. I don't know if that's
so
listed
maybe-
as a different.
Yeah, I'll check that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe not.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. That's the only one we have registered to speak. Are there others wishing to speak at this agenda item? All right, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and reopen the regular course of business. Plan Commissioner Engelberger.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just had, I was going to ask questions of the speaker, but he pretty much answered them. I was going to ask him about the alternative locations, which he mentioned. I guess I'd like to hear a little bit from Utilities Director Cardez regarding this issue.
Sure.
And I guess one other thing I wanted to see if there's, I don't imagine that there's a possibility of putting it underground, but maybe you can address that also.
Yeah, a few things to mention. First of all, I can't speak for American Transmission Company, but The substation is planned to have all of the circuits leaving the substation to go underground. And that's kind of an important concept. And those lines we see going to the north towards Highway 138 and to the east. There are about 40,000 substations like this in the country. And they're located where the load is. And that's why, of course, back in 2007, we looked at 5 sites in the area. And we determined that this one would be not only readily serviceable by ATC, but it's where the load was going to be. And actually, we've been looking at a substation to the west probably since the 90s. And it has materialized now. And as far as EMF, electromagnetic fields and so forth, everything that we read, everything that our consultants read is that no challenges associated with the substation. We've done a number of stray voltage studies over the years, and we're not really finding anything. I can speak more to that, but I guess right now I would say that our comfort level is high, as is our consultants. We're building a state-of-the-art substation, and we believe it's going to serve the customers for quite some time in the future.
Thank you. Commissioner Truill.
Thank you, Your Honor. Bob, you said you can't speak for ATC, but do you know what the plan is in terms of where the lines, the gentleman spoke about dividing the property and things like that? I mean, do we know where the transmission
Right
is?
now, we have a distribution easement going from Highway 138 down to A, across that property. We expect that the transmission line is either going to come from the south or the west. American Transmission Company, of course, is quite a bit different from us, and they're going to do what they can to get the line there. They have condemnation rights. So there's no doubt in my mind that that transmission line is going to show up when we need it.
Thank you. Further comments or questions?
I guess.
Sure, Commissioner
Yeah,
Engelberg.
thank you. I guess the other question I would have would maybe be for Rodney. Have we done everything we were supposed to do regarding notification and preparing for this
I certainly believe so.
situation? Okay.
Commissioner Hanna.
Thanks, Mayor. With regards to the comment on the lines coming from the south or the west, what input would we have, or what of any sort of control would we have regarding that?
I don't believe we have any.
Sure,
I
Commissioner
guess,
Engelberger.
I guess I would assume that there's going to be public hearings regarding that with whatever.
You know, I can't speak to it. I can't characterize this as a line similar to the Rockdale line that went down the Belt line. I think this is going to be a small trunk line off of an existing transmission line, which is really pretty close to the property. So I know they're evaluating it now. We've designed to take that transmission line, but where it'll ultimately come from, we believe the south or the west.
Thank you. Further comments or questions?
This is 10, number 10?
This is agenda item 10, yes. Commissioner Hanna.
I guess at this point, if we're just making a motion on the zoning,
Correct.
That's correct.
I'll make a motion for approval to turn it to institutional, since the city owns it. Seems logical. So I'll move for approval to rezone the property.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion by Hanna, a second by Truill. Further conversation or questions? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Agenda item 11 is a request by Stoughton Utilities for site plan approval to construct a substation on a portion of the parcel at 3201 Macomb Road.
Containing your packet is their layout for the site. And on the screen, I can just give you a quick overview of the layout. The orientation's a little different than what you saw for the CSM. So north is actually on the right-hand side of your screen. So 138 runs along the right-hand side of your screen. You'll see that during construction, they anticipate a temporary construction access into their facility. You can see the grade lines around the site with the different berming levels, and then you've got the landscaping that they're proposing along the perimeter. The front area that was referred to earlier along 138, this is a depressed or lower area that's depressed, and a fair amount of vegetation does exist in this area.
And will that end up being a retention pond, Rodney? Is that the site?
They actually are providing stormwater management prior to the wetland area here to meet the county and state standards.
Perfect, thank you. Comments or questions from our commissioners? Commissioner Hanna.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'm just trying to get, Rodney, would you be able to pull up an aerial view of existing? I know the Sutton's property is to the west there. And my question, I see, why they probably have pushed it back to the south side because of that depression, is what I'm understanding site-wise. But I just want to see what the existing is right now to see if there could be something done with more landscaping. I know there's various plantings along the driveway in between those parcels, but if more could be done to improve the aesthetics, visually block the substation.
I can zoom into various
Okay.
levels, but I'll just,
Sure.
from this
Yeah,
level,
go
point
ahead.
out where things are. 138 runs east to west on the screen as shown. The larger parcel owned by the utilities is generally in this area. The substation or the CSM parcel that was created or would be created is the westernmost portion of that property. The area that I identified with the vegetation wetland areas in the upper northwest corner of that. And I think Mr. Sutton, this is the home that the Suttons referred to. And this is the larger tract of land that I think is encompassed by the Sutton family.
Sure, Commissioner Kirchman.
How is that accessed, that Sutton property, please?
There's a very long
That's it,
driveway
okay.
that runs north to south along the edge of the western edge of the utility-owned land and down to the home. I can zoom in more if you desire.
Sure, yeah, if you could, please, thank you.
That attempts to frame the larger parcel owned by the utilities, essentially this larger tract of land right there.
Sure, Commissioner Hanna.
Couple questions. Is there a reason why the western side of this large parcel was chosen, and that, I think just to find out why the location was chosen, why the split was determined on the lot, and why it couldn't be tucked, further to the east as compared to where it is on the west?
Sure. Of course, originally we looked at the easement that we do have on the Wiley property, and we thought that may be a good avenue to move some of our circuits out. That's not materializing, but I think the actual location, and when we did the study back in 2007, was always there. I think we want to be as close as we can to American Transmission Company. When the property was graded in the fall of last year, it was graded specifically for the substation. I think ultimately, a question came up earlier, we're going to want to retain the western portion of the parcel. Something will happen to the eastern portion. We don't know what. We're not the least bit interested in seeing it go until our construction is done. But when our construction is done, we're going to have a driveway and we're going to have some circuits going to the north and going to the east. So I think it was a good fit. It also didn't break up the parcel. And early on, I think when we did the study, the engineers felt that it would be recessed back enough from Highway 138. If you drive by the parcel today, you're going to see that in the grading, actually, the woods is up a bit. So it's kind of like in a vestibule area. It's so it's an ideal location, and actually our other 3 substations have residences nearby, and we've done a real good job of vegetative screening in the past, and of course we'd have the same thing here.
Sure.
Yeah, so to reference your comment about the vegetation, how high would you say that was excavated right now? It's a pretty good distance, right?
Yeah.
And is that retained by anything, or is there anything?
Right now, the engineers feel that no further controls are necessary. They're looking at building pretty much with what we've got there. There are going to be some swales.
Okay.
But for the most part, and the thing about a substation like this too, first of all, we'll be there once a week. I think everything is pretty much automated. We'll have lights there only for emergencies, so it's virtually dark at night. So we think it'll fit well as the other substations do.
Sure, Commissioner Hanna.
Thanks, Mayor. It looks like you guys this is going to connect right to 138. And there's just going to be trying to figure out how you would actually get into there if you're coming from the east. Because it looks like there's a divider in that area, so access-wise. And another reason why I ask about the east side of the parcel as a potential is you have Macomb Road there, and you have a 66-foot access that touches Macomb Road on the survey. But right now, it's planned to go off of 138?
Only for construction. Our access to the substation is going to be from Macomb Road. Our drive to Macomb Road is probably going to be a driveway about 12 feet wide, similar to what we have at the other substations.
Just to give you some additional orientation,
Okay.
the roundabout that's been constructed there is approximately in this location here. You can see this is the the roundabout entrance going into the Kettle Park West development. So a future leg of the roundabout would come to the south approximately here.
So that access drive will be an extension off of Macomb?
Right now, the Macomb Road is going to be our only access. What happens in the future, we'll just have to see.
Sure.
But we will have an access, and right now it will be to Macomb Road.
And where does that happen? I don't see it necessarily on the site plan. I see temporary construction.
We don't know. I think we'll construct the substation, and then I think we'll fit it in there, and then we'll see how the land develops after that.
We think that as this roundabout, as the fourth leg would come in here, there's a high probability that there would be another street or a cul-de-sac that would come off of a north-south street in this general area to service the larger parcel. The construction access that was used during the Kettle Park West development is approximately as shown on the plan.
Yeah.
They're trying to utilize that same access point for construction of the substation.
Right.
Sure.
Thank you. So my question is, there's no, where you've delineated the split, I understand that you own the other parcel, but it looks like there's going to be some access that's cutting across the split from one to the next,
It has frontage. You're right, access would be through and across their own property.
through where we just approved the split. If I could continue.
Sure.
I guess I would like to see, you know, I see there is reference to buffer yard. Michael, if you could speak to this zoning. Now that it's institutional and then adjacent to, I don't know what the Wiley Sutton property is delineated as or zoned as, is that this plan meets those buffer yard requirements?
I believe the zoning's ag.
Ag.
It's a county zoning, yeah.
So that is
We don't have any requirements.
nothing.
We're institutional next
Sure.
to ag.
I did hear Bob say, though, it's real important to remain good neighbors. So
Right.
that screening would be
Yeah,
utmost
I guess that's what I'm debating, is whether or not, I mean, personally, I'd like to see the screening continue along the western side, down to the end of the property where feasible. I understand the south edge, that's just an earth wall, basically. But, and I'd like to, if they could mix in, you know, almost 60 to 70% evergreen, I think would be a nice balance to get a all-year screening. It would only benefit the, you know, the substation as well as a wind block and almost a snow fence in a way. If you have the evergreen down that stretch. So I'd like to see that continue from the point that it's existing. Substitute a few of the deciduous species that are currently along that western edge, and you know, mix in a few more. Actually, I'd like to see probably a few white pines would be nice, quicker growers, but a nice mixture of evergreen screening along that western edge.
Okay, thank you. Utilities Director Cardez.
You know, all I can say is that right now, though we've been pretty involved with our design, we'll do what we can, but again, we don't know where American Transmission Company is coming in. We'll do what's feasible, but like the mayor said, we've always been good neighbors, and we'll do everything we can, I think, to provide as much buffer that we can provide.
Thank you. Commissioner Kirchma.
Is the plan on the south end to leave the existing trees as they were on that site plan?
Yeah, the existing trees that are there, I think we own a little bit back to the fence, and certainly we're not touching anything there.
If I may.
Commissioner Kirchma.
I also think I would like to require landscaping to the extent possible all the way on the western border. Because I think that it's shortchanging it the way it's drawn here. And I know you got to have where the lines come in, you probably aren't going to be able to have anything, but if we require it along that entire west, then you just leave out the spot where the lines come through, if that's feasible.
Yeah, I'd like to be able to do everything that we can, but at the same time, we know that if American Transmission Company comes in on the west side, there isn't going to be much that we're going to be able to plant that's going to be very tall.
Sure. Commissioner Kirchma. Or Hannah, I'm sorry.
Thank you. So, you're saying that if you're not sure where their lines are going to come in or when they're going to come in, but if they did, they'd be coming in on the southwest side there.
They're either going to come from the south or the west.
Okay, and so that's why that corner was designed to not have any further plantings?
I think right now we've, with a circuit there already, and then the substation, I think that if anything, the plantings would be relatively small.
At what height would those lines come in?
I think a good example would be to look at the transmission line along Highway 138 between Lake Kegonsa Road and Oregon. I think that I would expect that there are going to be similar poles, but again, I'm not American Transmission Company, and but I would think that we don't expect to have any underbuild on what they're building, but there maybe another good example would be along the line from County Trunk B extending down towards where Page Street and Williams Drive come together. Where those poles are, it could very well be similar poles. We just don't know. All we know is that American Transmission Company is going to build something.
So what height are those six, just a rough guess, what height are those poles at now?
Boy, I would think they're around 60 feet.
60
at
feet up?
least.
With that being said, I think we could plant some evergreens along that side and be totally fine. If they do need to move, then they can be transplanted to another location on the property. And without any foreseeable timeline, I think that the landscaping should go in on that side. And then they can be adjusted. I mean, I appreciate planting 6 and 8 foot trees initially. I think that's great. But I mean, I don't think they have to be any bigger than 6, as long as they're, manageable. Let's say the lines come in within the next 3 years. I'd still say, though, those trees are feasible to move or relocate. You don't have to pull them out and discard them. So if they were 6 foot trees, I think that'd be feasible. And for the timeline for them to ever get 60 feet, I mean, that's a long time.
Yeah.
So
I'm hearing a recommendation from Commissioner Hanna to amend Resolution 8, 2017 to require evergreen screening along the west border of the site.
yes, please.
Okay. That's a motion? I don't want to make a
Sure.
motion for you,
Yeah,
but that's what I'm...
I will add that. I haven't made a motion yet.
Okay, that's what I mean. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
right.
that's what I'm hearing, the consensus.
When we
And
come to a
Alder-
motion, I'd like that to be considered, yes.
Okay, Alderperson Truul had a comment?
Thank you, Your Honor. I guess one of the things I'm struggling with is in looking at the actual grades. It appears that the footprint right now will likely be about at 930, plus or minus. And when we're talking about the west side, the revised grades are taking us to 927, 926. So a 6 foot tree planted at 926 gets us the top of that tree at 932. So I don't see a lot of berming or protection on that side anyway, Bob. So I guess it's one thing to talk about worrying about where the trees are to try and get some things, but we might also consider really trying to do some other berming or screening or something on that side of the property. Looking at the grades, the vegetation that's to the north of this, that's in the upper right-hand corner on that, the low spot there is 916, and then it works its way on up in terms of the core there to 922. I guess the reason I bring that up is effectively we are looking at a substation on a bit of a mountain, not a mountain, but at least a hill. And so I think it is important for us to look, also at other screening opportunities along that west side. And so, perhaps it's some combination of additional berming and the trees. Because as I said, really looking at the grade, an 8 foot tree will have virtually no impact on screening. That'll barely get to the bottom of the substation, much less any fencing, anything else that we're talking about.
Okay, thank you very much. No? further comments from our commissioners? Commissioner Hanna?
Sure. Yeah, I think you bring up a good point, Scott, of understanding the grade, looking at a two-dimensional plan. I think it would also retain the water on site and not wash it over the neighbor's driveway as the grade is showing on there. There'd be basically, it looks like that's part of a drainage way as well. Through there, if that is, that is up. Yeah, I mean,
From what we can see, it's 925, 926.
yeah, 927 is the high point, or
Right.
high point there. I mean, I think it'd be nice to carry through what the berm is down that west lot line. That would, I think that would help a lot.
Sure. Utilities Director Cardes.
We're certainly going to retain all of the water on our property. I would say we'll do what we can, but again, when American Transmission Company comes in, I'm not so sure about how many trees they're going to allow in their easement. And the reason why I bring that up is on our north substation along the railroad tracks in County Trunk B, we have it pretty much surrounded with plantings on three sides, but the side where the transmission line comes in, there are no plantings there. And they're probably pretty firm as to what they allow in their easements. But we'll do the best we can. And that'll be the direction to the engineers.
Thank you. Alderperson Truul.
Thank you, Your Honor. And again, Bob, that's where I'm going, not only talking about trees, but talking about berming. There's a minimum clearance that they're going to require under those lines. And I understand a concern about the trees, but I think we can do some other things from an earthing standpoint to make this, to soften the effect of this, at least on the neighbors. In an ideal world, if we'd known what we were going to end up with for the property across the street, this should have been across the street as a part of perhaps that whole development, because it would be better suited in terms of actually the use and where everything is. Having said that, I guess I simply saying we'll do our best comes up a little bit hollow for me on this one. So I guess whatever our fellow council member or commission members come up with this evening, I think it is important for us to look to do whatever we can to soften the effect of this on the neighborhood or the neighboring property.
Correct. All right, further comments? Alderperson Engelberg.
Thank you, Your Honor. Rodney, could you put up maybe the certified survey that shows where the location of this is again?
That one?
Yeah. So where is the map we just looked at in relation to that survey?
It covers this area.
Okay. And
The woods that was referred to is along this southern property, the lowland wetland area along 138 in the northwest corner is here. The driveway that was referred to for the Stoughton area, Wiley property is along this property
okay.
line.
And how big is the map we were looking at just in the past one on this survey?
How big is it?
Well, I mean, how much of that space right there does it take up? Basically right there, and the driveway is where?
The construction access was going to be off of right
And it's
here.
going to come from a comb.
No, it was going to come from 130
But I mean,
during construction.
that's just a temporary one,
Yeah.
though. Yeah. Okay, and so the adjoining property to the west is that the gentleman that spoke
Yeah.
earlier?
Yeah, right.
Okay, so this survey right there is the full 13 acres or whatever that the city has?
This piece,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, and then the cutout up there is where there's houses currently?
The house was removed here. The city removed the house that was here. There is a
Okay.
house here, and there's another house, I believe, here in some
Okay, and we don't know exactly where the transmission lines will be coming in, either from the west or from the south, but we don't know
Maybe
for
this-
sure, right?
Right now, there's, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think there's overhead lines that run down along the driveway currently.
Okay,
And they also run along 138 on the south side of 138, correct?
Correct.
Right, okay. And so this is the larger tract of land owned by the city. Lot 1 that was, proposed to be created is the western part of that.
okay. And where are the transmission lines farther to the west? I mean, Bob, I think, referenced them, or somebody referenced them. I'm just wondering, are they right on the road, or are they
No.
back in the lot lines?
Yeah, they come between Star School Road and the vicinity of where we have our easement. That goes along the Wiley driveway down to County Trunk A. So it comes in from the west, then it goes south. And then it goes east again, and then ultimately comes onto Acker Road in County Trunk A.
So the
Am I outlining this correctly? I want to make sure I am, but the subject property is this one. The long driveway that we spoke of leads back to this house here. I believe the ATC lines come along here, and then do they come,
I think they
North
go
along here?
straight to Star School Road.
Okay.
It's difficult to
think it's
find
right
in
here.
this particular photo, but it's an east-west transmission line that comes to the property line, and then it goes south. So, of course, what they're going to try and do is they're going to try and go off that transmission line the easiest way possible for them. And it's going to be either dealing with the property owners or coming along County Trunk A, or coming along Highway 138.
you don't think it would just come straight north to our property?
I would love that to happen,
I mean, that would be the shortest route.
of course,
wouldn't it?
but we
Yeah.
have no control over that property.
I guess the other question I have, and I'm on the Utilities Committee, or Commission, and I don't recall that we've approved this I mean, it looks to me like we've got a site plan ready to build.
Right.
Has the Utilities approved this? And-
They approved the CIP,
Right, and I
as did the
understand that.
council.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, right now, we're also looking at a public works facility that needs to go through more approval process. Does this facility still need to go through some process with approval as
Yeah,
far as
the
funds for the
utilities-
construction?
the Utilities Committee in the past elected to not do it. Certainly, the Utilities Committee can make a change. But if
far
it's
as
in the CIP,
Right.
they expect projects to move forward.
Okay, and that was my question, because, like I say, we're looking at other facilities that need further approval, and to me, this seems like, this thing is plopped on us here, and I didn't know we had plans for this thing yet.
Sure.
And I'm on the committee. so-
Yeah, it's a long-term thing. Again, started looking at sites in 2007, purchased the property in 2009. It has been moving along up until now. We predicted we would need the substation online second quarter of next year. That's what all the projections are saying.
It's been in the long-range plans,
Yeah.
correct, Bob?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Okay.
I remember seeing it out there anyway. I know it always seemed like
I
a
mean,
long
we've
ways
we've
away,
discussed
but
it. I know we've discussed
It
it,
seemed
but
like a long
I hadn't
ways.
seen any detailed plans or detailed construction figures or anything like that.
Sure. Commissioner Hanna?
Thanks, Mayor. So actually, on one of these plans, looks like Strand has outlined approximate location of ATC pole. That would be the grading plan, I believe.
I think it's the next one.
Restoration plan, yeah. And I guess I just want to understand further if you know what the standards are for ATC so we can plan at this point as to what we can do for for screening, you know, to make it efficient. I mean, because there are smaller evergreen trees that can get to, you know, only 12 to 15 feet that we could put in. I would recommend junipers over arborvitae because they're deer resistant. And those being still, I mean, even if we get 10 feet on top of a berm, I mean, that would be enough screening. And if you think, from your experience, that, you know, the requirements from ATC as far as clearance and what they need, that we could get away with that, then yeah, I don't think we try. I think we do landscaping along that side, and we create a berm.
Totally agree.
I mean, unless there's any further discussion upon the site plan, where it's at. See any? I'll make a motion for approval, but it's conditioned that the bermed grading along the west lot line continue from current proposed all the way to the southern lot line. And that the plantings along the west lot line contain 75% evergreen screening for the continuing from the proposed all the way through to the south lot line, with consideration to ATC clearance requirements, with a suggestion of junipers as a smaller evergreen option.
Is that it?
Yeah,
Is there a
and also, I guess, request junipers excluding arborvitae.
Yes, thank you.
Second.
Second by Kirchma. Further comments regarding that motion? Commissioner Kirchma.
And I'd like to ask Matt to require that the south lot line, the trees remain. So right now, they're not shown as existing or anything. I'm just wondering, are they gonna get all tore out to make that berm that's there? So, either the trees have to remain, or they have to put trees on the south lot line. Matt, I don't know what you think about that.
Is that a friendly amendment?
That's a friendly motion.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Engelberger.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think Bob mentioned something about where the transmission lines come in. There may be regulations that they can't have something under them, or is that true or no?
Oh, I know where there are transmission lines, where there are plantings underneath,
Okay.
off of where the transmission line leaves Lake Eganza Road. There have been trees and plantings there. Whether they're still there or not, you know, I don't really know. But I'll say this, the engineers that are working on the substation are working very closely with American Transmission Company. So they're hearing you, and they're going to do what they can to shelter it the best they can.
Thank you.
Okay. Alderperson Truul.
Thank you, Your Honor. Matt, when we talk about, again, I'm hung up on the actual numbers here. When we talk about extending the berm along the west side, again, right now, unless I'm reading it wrong, the top elevation for the top of the berm is probably 930. Again, that is actually the baseline for where the substation is. So the
Right.
berm
Essentially
brings us up to level. So I would certainly encourage, if you were game with it, I would encourage that we set a height, you know, that we assume that we're going to want to have a berm that's actually a couple feet above that or something. I mean, literally, if I'm reading the grades right, what appears to be a bermed area, that's great, but it's literally just getting it to the base of the substation. So, you know, do you want a 3-foot berm, a 5-foot berm, something?
I'd say we do a 4-foot berm.
Because then at least has some service.
Well, yeah, and even if it's ATC comes in, throws around their power and says we can't have any plantings there, we still have.
Right. That's
Earth,
where I was going originally
you know,
with the idea that one way or another
They're
we
bringing in a bulldozer to cut grade down for no particular reason. So that's a great point.
Is there a motion second? All
There
that?
was a motion by Hannah, a second by Kirchma, and then a friendly amendment Did this include the berm?
It includes a friendly amendment of 4-foot berm along the western side.
Yes. All right, Commissioner
And the
Hannah.
4 foot is 4 foot
Which one?
over the
Thank you.
low, 4 foot over the lowest grade level, or of the grade level of the substation, not just 4 foot.
Right, thank you. That was the clarification I wanted you to make sure you got.
So it'd be a total of 9.
So as proposed, the top of that berm would be 934.
934.
Or 935, depending on which cut we're working with there. So 935.
All
I know
right.
that will change your detention pond and some other things, because we're talking about then adding 6, 7, 8 feet to that side. But I think that's the only way it's going to make any difference.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Further comments or discussion on that motion? Commissioner Maloney?
Sorry to
Nope, no
ask
worries.
for more clarity, but I just wanted to re-echo what Mr. Kirchman's had as a friendly amendment, and make sure that berm on the south is
Right.
not included.
Is not included?
Is included, or is not?
If it is included, then it looks like it would wipe out the trees. And I'm not sure of the purpose of the south berm.
Maybe need some more clarification on that?
I believe what we're trying to do is we're trying to capture all of the moisture on the substation property and move it to detention. So that's why we would have the berming.
Part of containment.
Yep.
Can there be trees on top of that berm as well?
There aren't anywhere else,
Okay.
any of the
I'm
other
asking,
substations.
I'm the layperson here, but
You know,
results were-
there is a big woods farther to the south. I think we're kind of up against that slope. You're going to like what you see.
Commissioner Engelberger.
Point of order, 7 o'clock, we've got another meeting scheduled in a different location. How are we going to handle this?
I know that the meeting will begin without us. They'll wait a little bit.
presentation
The
will.
presentation will begin without us, and then we'll join them as we can.
I mean, I got a problem with that. We're missing the meeting. We're missing the scheduled plan commission here, open house.
Yep, we knew that there would be a conflict there at
Well, I
some
don't know that we
point.
knew that. I mean,
Pardon me?
the plan commission doesn't need to be at the public hearing or at the open house?
I don't know, Matt?
Let's just take the next couple.
It's a noticed open house for the Plan Commission. Is it, do we need to close this meeting to attend the next one beginning at 7 o'clock?
It's going to take.
I'm sorry, noticed open house for the Plan Commission?
Well, it's a noticed meeting because the Plan Commission members may all be there. It's an open house regarding our comprehensive plan.
So it's noticed
And-
as an open house for the comprehensive plan? Is it noticed as
I'm going to
a,
pull it out here if I
Plan
can
Commission
find it here.
Noticed as a plan commission meeting.
The notice says, well, the special meeting, excuse me. I can, instead of reading, since I have a frog. Let Matt take a look. We had hoped we
Time, is there
would,
anything else we need to do on this item? Can we-
it says it's a Plan Commission meeting. I mean, it says it's a meeting of the Plan Commission.
all right, so we'll have to
Obviously
get
can't
them
be in two
to,
places at one time.
we'll have to have them hold for us till just a second so we can wrap this up. We had hoped that this would move further. You never know. You never know how quickly things will discuss, or you want to take the plenty of time to discuss items as well. So let's, while Rodney is texting with Michael, let's wrap this agenda item up. We've had some good discussion. There've been a couple of motions and amendments to the motion. Is there further discussion on this site plan for Stoughton Utilities?
Basically, it's they're going to be wiped out.
Yeah, it's inconclusive. I think we need to continue the landscaping along the south side.
Okay.
Especially, yeah,
The challenge is, when this goes in, there's trees that there, but we don't control that.
Right.
So we still need to be, we would expect any other developer to come in and landscape this, notwithstanding, not counting on the neighbors to provide the landscaping, or the cover. So I think you're raising a good point. I think, we
Yeah.
still need to figure out what this is gonna look like.
Right, I think the plan is a little inconclusive as to what is surrounding it, so we need to take it for what we're seeing. And what I'm seeing right now is that the southern exposure is not blocked. So I would continue landscaping along the southern end.
But maybe a different question, Bob. When will we know what ATC comes up with and things, assuming we're going through this? And the genesis of my question is, if we knew what was happening, it would make it a whole lot easier for all of us to deal with the site plan. And where you're running into, I think, objections from all of us and some apprehension is you're asking for a site plan and we don't know what's going to happen yet. So my question is, do we need the site plan to move forward with the substation and ATC? And if the answer is no, I'm going to refer that we table this and take it up at a later time.
Yeah, I believe we do. I think what I was told was that ATC is walking the site this week, and they are going to make a determination as to how they're going to come in. And granted, with the substations that we've built in the past, the transmission line has already been there. This is new for us, but it's old for our engineers. So I think that with the action that you're going to take, they're going to be able to do the plantings, do what they can everywhere. But I think it's important that we start to move on this. I think we need to move on this. I can't say much more than that. I can't.
Thank you. Commissioner Hanna.
Thanks. So you're saying we could know where the transmission line is coming within a week?
No,
Month?
I think right now ATC is looking at a couple different venues, either from the south or from the west. I don't know when that'll happen, but right now we're looking at being hot May of next year. And in order for all of that to come together, at some point, American Transmission Company is going to be telling our engineers how they're going to serve the substation.
Thank you. Commissioner Kirchma.
There's a plan that says approximate pipe pole location. If Strand's got it on there, how do they know? If you're saying they don't know, but it's shown right on here. I mean, I'm not following you.
Okay, I think that that's the best that we know. The consultants are working for me.
Okay, I'm sorry. Commissioner Truill.
With that in mind, I think this evening you've got the CSM, so we identify the property, we've changed the zoning, but I'm not comfortable approving site plan, so I would move to table this item until we have more information, so we can take a final action at that point.
Well, we have a motion and a second already, can you do that?
Motion to table is always in order.
takes precedence.
What you're asking is you want to capture the things we've been talking about. My hope would be that we would have those in the minutes and we could take it back up when we actually know what we're doing.
I am 100% on board with that.
The motion to table is not debatable, so, and it's just a simple majority vote. So all those in favor of table, it's
Just
not.
want to make sure that Utilities brings forward any additional information they can to the next meeting, so we know what's going on.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, it'll probably be tabled again.
Yep, I think that Rodney's captured all of that. Bob?
And if I can just ask, if possible, I'd rather not wait another month. If you would consider having a special meeting, I'm going to give the engineers their walking orders to do everything that they need to do and get it done as soon as possible.
We have some other items that we weren't able to address this evening, so I think we'll look at a special Plan Commission meeting to finish up on our agenda as well. So there's a motion to table. It's not debatable. Motion and a second. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. So I'd entertain a motion to adjourn, and Rodney will be in touch with another scheduled meeting. Motion by Engelberger. Is there a second?
Yes.
Motion by Jensen. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No,
Motion carries.
finish it.